This is the BBC World Service, and the next episode of The Forum is looking at how the mobile phone has changed our lives.
The fear of low battery, and the sheer panic when you think you might have actually lost it and become totally cut off from the world. No! Oh, thank goodness. There it is. Our panel will be exploring what we've gained, what we've lost, and how we got to the point where we almost can't live without one.
There is a psychological attachment of people to their phones, which really makes them move beyond being a tool.
From the history of ringtones, cameras, and messaging to when phones got the internet.
The phone knows our darkest secrets, our insecurities, our desires, and it tempts us with what we're most interested in.
The Forum, how the mobile phone changed everything. Saturday at 11 GMT, or listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up on the BBC World Service.
In 10 years' time, we'll look back and say, how did we provide this dietary recommendations without having this deep-level data on the individual?
Are machines better at deciding what we should eat than we are? I'm Adam Shaw, and I'll be exploring what would happen if we allowed artificial intelligence to design our diets, and whether that could ultimately improve our health. That's the food chain after the news.
BBC News with Gareth Barlow. The United Nations Children's Agency says up to 67 million children have missed some or all of their routine vaccinations due to COVID lockdowns and disruption caused by the pandemic. UNICEF warned that parents' awareness of the importance of vaccines for children was declining, while disinformation and political polarisation had contributed to vaccine hesitancy. Residents have been fleeing fighting in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, fearing about dwindling food supplies and the collapse of medical services. A new ceasefire attempt failed for a second day. Houthi officials in Yemen say up to 80 people have been killed in a stampede in the capital Sanaa during a charity distribution for Ramadan. More than 100 people were injured. A 25-year-old man in Texas has been arrested for shooting two cheerleaders in a supermarket car park after one mistook his car for her own vehicle. There's confusion about a bright flash that set off air raid alarms in the Ukrainian capital Kiev on Wednesday evening. The local commander said the large glowing object was a NASA satellite falling to Earth. A Russian-born woman from New York has been sentenced to 21 years in jail for trying to poison her look-alike to steal her identity. The court heard that in 2016, Victoria Nazarova visited her friend who she strongly resembled and brought her a cheesecake laced with fenazepam. Joe Biden will discuss the possibility of lifting economic sanctions on Venezuela when he meets Colombia's President Gustavo Petro on Thursday. A senior U.S. official said Washington was willing to ease sanctions if steps were taken towards democratic elections in Venezuela. And a rare type of solar eclipse is taking place, with large crowds gathered in parts of Australia and elsewhere to see the spectacle. The hybrid eclipse takes place when some parts of the world experience a total eclipse, while other parts witness an angular eclipse. That's the ring of fire around the Blacktown area. BBC News.
There's a new science that could change the way we eat.
This is perhaps the most transformative influence factor that I've seen in 3+ decades in medicine and also as a researcher.
Artificial intelligence could be about to change the way we think about nutrition.
In 10 years' time, we'll look back and say, how did we provide this dietary recommendations without having this deep-level data on the individual? And that is where the opportunity of AI really sits.
Hello and welcome to the food chain from the BBC World Service. I'm Adam Shaw, and this week we're looking at the rise of AI in the world of nutrition. A new science for a new era of personalized diets.
This idea that the same foods should be recommended for all people is naive. It's wrong.
For it to work, we'll need to share a lot about ourselves.
We would hope to be able to take people's data, their vitamins and minerals and their organic acids or other measurements, put it into a machine learning model, and then say what would be the best personalized diet for them.
And in some cases, interact with the machines. It's interesting, you've been talking about hope, definitely as a woman. Is it very important that the user sees it as a person?
It's so important for people to feel engaged. There is an overguiding theme where technology is something that you can't necessarily provide that personal connection with.
I've come to Viva Health Labs in Windsor to meet Dr. James Neal, whose company Uzen specialises in personalised nutrition and is actually at the moment developing a nutritional AI model. The lab is based at the end of what is this rather grand driveway, which I'm coming up now. It's in an old manor house at the bottom here, spoilt only by the fact I'm getting rained on a bit. But let's go inside. From the outside, it might look like a traditional English manor house, but inside, it is in fact a high-tech lab that's helping develop what could be a major revolution in artificial intelligence diets. Scientists here are gathering the raw data needed by Dr. Neal and his Centre for Nutrition Education and Lifestyle Management in the UK to create a new machine-led approach to better dietary health. Their ambitions are grand, although the science is at an early stage.
Personalised nutrition requires a comprehensive understanding of your nutritional biochemistry. And here at Viva Health Labs, they provide those services. You can send in your blood, your urine, and other things like saliva and actually breath samples as well.
You can send in your breath?
You can send in your breath.
Okay, that's really
and that can be used to identify, for example, whether you've got a small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which is sort of a gut microbiome issue that people can have. And so these guys are really creating the data that in personalised nutrition we use to make clinical decisions, but also that can be used to help build machine learning algorithms or artificial intelligence algorithms.
So explain how that works. I could send in some samples to this lab or a lab like this, and from that you could design a specific diet for me, or is that just leading to fundamental research into how bodies and dietary plans interact?
The answer is both. So in the first instance, by understanding your nutritional status and that information going to a nutrition professional, they can understand, for example, where you might be deficient in certain nutrients, and we can understand that at a personalised level at the moment and make some clinical or nutritional recommendations about the individual. But it's difficult to make a precise prediction, like if you eat this diet that is tailored to you, then this blood marker, say for example your cholesterol, this value will likely drop to within this range 3 months, 6 months, whatever, of you following this nutritional program. What we would like to be able to do is to gather lots of people's data together to continually observe how these things change, and then it can make an empirical prediction about what is likely to happen. And this is something that requires quite sophisticated machine learning approaches. There are different types of AI which matter a lot. One essentially extracts observations from data. This is the non-explanatory AI. These are, for example, the techniques that chatgpt uses. They spot patterns in data very well, and that can be very useful. But an explanatory model that explains these patterns in the data can give us much more leverage. I can say, given what I know, what would be the best diet for this individual? I can also say, if I gave that individual a personalised nutrition program and it didn't go quite as well as I'd expected, what could I have done better?
Okay, if we had this conversation in 10 years' time and that sort of approach is successful, what do you hope to be able to do as a result of it that we can't do now?
We would hope to be able to take people's data that we could gather at a laboratory like this. Here's what Sally or John's or whoever's metabolic status is, what their vitamins and minerals and their organic acids or other measurements are, put it into a machine learning model, and then say, for the outcomes that we want, what would be the best personalised diet for them. Maybe adding another nutritional supplement or another dietary modification improves things a little, but they become more difficult to comply to, they become more expensive. A person can't have a perfectly optimal lifestyle, perfectly optimal diet. They live in the real world.
Dr. Neil's team hopes to build these machine learning models in 3 to 5 years' time. But even when or if the technology has been developed, there remains the question of whether AI-driven diets will be for everyone.
If you are a young, healthy individual who wants to change their diet and lifestyle such that they're not going to experience health problems later on, they're not necessarily going to see the benefit of truly personalised nutrition, although it would help them make better decisions. But it is when people start to have more health problems that are more specific to their circumstances, their genetics or whatever, it is there where we will see nutrition being able to help them have better health outcomes, better support other medical interventions and their outcomes. That is where we will see a revolution, and we will also see a revolution in being able to predict things.
That data analysis opens up the possibility of a range of new applications, which involves not just the food we eat, but it can also help nudge us into changing our behaviour. Penny McCoy is a dietitian in Sydney, Australia, who's been working with people who are trying to lose weight and improve their overall health.
Almost 2/3 of Australians are overweight or obese, and we know that obesity has an impact on overall health. It does increase risks of chronic disease, conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease, and certain cancers as well. So we really do need to provide scientific and evidence-based programs to help people improve their own health and empowering people to have the skills, the health knowledge to be able to make those changes.
Penny and her colleagues at Australia's National Science Agency, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, CSIRO for short, run a diet program which uses a sort of automated therapist who gives prompts to members to keep them on track with their weight loss goals.
Our AI-inspired coach is called Hope, and it's a tool that's really designed to provide encouragement, motivation and support based on the way that members are interacting with the program.
And how does it do that? I'm trying to get an understanding of how it might be different from sort of old tech, where you might get put into different pots, you answer a few questions, and it says, well, you're this sort of person. How is this different?
Hope's been based on over 100 million data points from previous users of the CSIRO Total Wellbeing Diet platform and built into a machine learning process where she's able to provide prompts and messaging based on the user's interactions now of the program. And the more people use Hope, the better her messaging becomes over time.
So the machine learning, the AI part of it, is responding, if I was a user of it, saying, well, Adam's not following the guidance we're giving him, he needs a bit of encouragement or he needs a bit of telling off. Is that the AI bit of it?
That is exactly that. So at the beginning of the program, you might be particularly engaged and using the features intensively, and so your expectations for weight loss at that time point will be much larger than if you're disengaged with the program. And so as you get along, maybe by week 3 or 4, you might be starting to think, hang on a second, the intensity is dropping off here. And so Hope is able to predict your weight loss from that point to help you re-motivate and re-engage with the platform to achieve the goals that you set out to at the beginning. AI is hugely a component of technology that's really going to help personalize our programs. And Hope is new and she's still learning. At the moment, she's really focusing on how members are utilizing the platform. What are they clicking on? What pages are they going to? And with time, she'll be able to become smarter and more intelligent, giving prompts for people to say, hey, maybe you might need to increase your vegetable intake or potentially choosing leaner meats and fish and so forth.
There's something else that you might have noticed here, and that is Penny has been referring to her piece of software as if it were human, anthropomorphizing the machine. It's interesting, you've been talking about hope, definitely as a woman. Is it very important that the user sees it as a person as opposed to a bit of software?
It's not necessarily that it needs to be a woman. It seems like when we've done our research trials, it tends to be spoken to as a woman, but definitely as a person. It's so important for these messages for people to feel engaged with behaviour change and improving nutrition. It really is important to connect. And I think there is an overguiding thing where technology is something that you can't necessarily provide that personal connection with, but when you put a face to the AI, it gives us motivation, it gives us optimism that we can achieve our goals with the help of this AI kind of inspired coaching technique.
The scientists behind the systems might be convinced, but dieters, of course, might have a different view about being told what to do by a computer. I can tell you're excited by it, but what's the response of your clients, customers, been to this?
The members have been loving it. Initially, there's a lot of security and data fears when it comes to AI technology, but once members are understanding how the data is being used, they really have been responding positively to hope being incorporated into the program. I'm so passionate about the evolution of nutrition science. Personalised nutrition is something I think over the next 10 years we'll have the benefits of these AI tools to really understand habits.
Do you not personally feel conflicted by all of this? Because if this is a success, you as a professional dietitian may be out of a job in the future.
That's a really valid question. I've been working in the digital health space for 15 years as part of my dietetic role, and you will never be able to replace the human element, whether or not that is overseeing the way that these AI tools work, or whether or not it's having that touch point where someone can just connect with a human to reach out for help. I do always see humans needing human contact, but we can be optimizing program use by these AI technologies.
You're listening to The Food Chain from the BBC World Service with me, Adam Shaw. This week we're delving into the role that artificial intelligence is playing in what we eat and how it might be crucial in creating individualized diets. The advance of artificial intelligence is rallying scientific thought around a number of health issues that link to nutrition. Dr. Eric Topol is a cardiologist and the director of the Scripps Research Translational Institute in California. He's written widely on how technological advances are likely to transform healthcare.
The problem we've had is that we're overwhelmed with data and also critical questions like nutrition. But only recently have we had the analytical tools to deal with all this data to make sense of it. And that's exciting, but of course, it's just the beginning of a long road ahead.
To investigate the potential of AI diets, in 2019, Dr. Topol took part in a 2-week experiment that involved using a smartphone app to track everything he ate, drank, and every piece of medication he took, as well as how much he slept and exercised. The point was to find out what kind of food he should be eating to live a longer and healthier life.
I knew from recent reports at that time that there are these glucotypes, or people that have very marked glucose elevation to certain foods. And so I was interested how I would respond. So I had a continuous glucose sensor on for 2 weeks and captured everything that I ate and drank, recorded, whatever prescription medications, and had my steps and sleep, and my gut microbiome was part of this. And at the end of the 2 weeks, it said, here are the foods that are making your glucose go up. I had some glucose spikes, several, and I learned which foods were doing that. And that was, of course, upsetting to learn that some of my favorite foods were the culprits. And I could see that in real time. In the morning, I might have some granola, and I'm watching the glucose go up, 15, 20 minutes after I, ate breakfast. So it made recommendations for various foods, and it didn't take into account the fact that I have another concurrent medical problem of kidney stones, which changed everything. So the AI I learned 4 years ago wasn't all that smart. We're not ready yet to say that we can give individualized nutrition recommendations, but I do think we're headed in that direction.
Can you give me a sense of how significant, when this thing starts actually working better, it will be for individuals? And I wonder whether the generalized approach to nutrition and diets gets you 80 or 90% of the way there, and the personalized bit is a rather marginal improvement for those perhaps athletes or people who have particular medical challenges, or will it fundamentally change everybody's approach to food?
Yeah, we don't know that yet. It's a really important question you're asking, Adam. We do know people have a highly variable response. So if we all ate the exact same food, the exact same amount, the exact same time of day, and the exact same sequence, somebody's glucose might go to 170, and another person may have a flat glucose response, sitting at 90 or 80 or whatever. So some people, it could be a very marked contribution to help give individualized nutrition, whereas others, it may not make that much difference. So we're still in the early learning phase of this.
And do you have a sense that the use of AI will actually create new knowledge, that it will be a way of pushing out the boundaries of medical understanding rather than just creating a diet for me and you and telling us, look, these foods are good for you? No, this is fundamental science it could do.
Oh, yeah, no, this is perhaps, I would say, Adam, the most transformative influence factor that I've seen in, 3+ decades in medicine and also as a researcher. I don't know that we've ever seen anything as pluripotent as this to alter all aspects of medicine and ultimately for prevention of illnesses in people who are at risk for manifesting an illness and never having it in their lifetime, which is a fantasy, that we've never been actualized until now. So this is an enthralling time in medicine. Nutrition application is just one use case, but it may wind up being quite useful.
Dr. Topol is one of a growing group of converts who see great potential in the new technology. Dr. Mariette Abrahams is the founder and CEO of Kina, which offers strategic advice on the personalized nutritional market. So, how much could AI revolutionize our approach to food?
Getting somebody to track their diet can be a huge challenge. And so with AI now, you can just take a picture of what's on your plate, and that then can kind of estimate the portion size of what's on your plate, what kind of ingredients are in that type of food, and then provide a nutritional analysis for what potentially is in your actual meals. Another way is also combining different data sets. So you can upload your data from your smartphone, and that can all be integrated into your electronic health record. So that was not possible before. Also, we can now at a stage where we can predict how you may respond to maybe a specific dietary intervention. And then finally, you can also have these recommender systems. So if you think about your Netflix or your Spotify, you can create a profile of the individual and then say, based on what it is that you want, here's a 7-day meal plan or some recipes. That would take someone ages, a practitioner ages to do that. And so AI is therefore an enabler to create these recommender systems, which are much faster and can save a lot of money as well.
It may be a faster system, but the technology might also come with some pitfalls.
Adoption of these kind of apps and platforms can be hindered by the fact that these data sets are not inclusive of different areas, food databases. So you have a very selective set of, I would say, westernized foods that are recommended, whereas maybe African or South American foods may be more vilified, so to speak. But as well, a lot of the how these recommender systems are actually generated is a black box in many cases, because that is the intellectual property absolutely. There is really very little transparency in terms of how these recommendations are ended up, giving to the individuals.
The buzz around this industry and this science is that personalised nutrition is going to be the future. I wonder how much you think that future is dependent on artificial intelligence.
I think it's huge, because the only way you can really interrogate these huge data sets and then learn from it is to apply AI and machine learning. I think at this stage where we are now, it's one of the technologies, I would say, and I always say AI it's an overarching term of different techniques. We shouldn't just lump everything in as AI, is that different techniques may be better and better applied to be able to, encourage better behavior change, for example. There's no point in having all these different data sets unless the data actually adds value and helps people to change their behavior. It's just another set of data. So I think in terms of AI, we need to understand really what are the data points that are really, really critical to really make a difference in terms of people's health.
What sort of future are you envisioning that AI might provide?
I see a future where people will really understand what works best for them in their environment, in their family, within their budget, for example, to really optimize their health or even manage their condition. So if I look at how my training was, everything has changed. I think in 10 years' time, maybe shorter, but in 10 years' time, we'll look back and say, how did we provide this dietary and recommendations without having this deep level data on the individual and deep level insights on the individual on how they would actually respond to what we tell them to do. And I think that is where the opportunity of AI really sits.
AI clearly comes with health warnings, but if we understand its limitations and pitfalls, it could provide new insight into the ways our bodies are behaving and responding, which in turn could help our diets and our overall health, as Dr. Topol explains.
A lot of people have substantial glucose spikes that they're not aware of. And is that a risk factor for progressing to type 2 diabetes? Is that a risk factor for certain types of cancers and potentially neurodegenerative diseases? And what if we can get rid of glucose spikes? It's just one example from optimal nutrition. So right now, we do know that it's undesirable to have these big glucose spikes, but we don't know how undesirable it is. And someday